Is this the right place to post about a brush with death? I feel like you guys on this Reddit can appreciate it, even if there's no ghosts or tragedies. 10 minutes ago, I just stepped out of an elevator. I was supposed to die when the cable snapped. I don't know whether to laugh or should I be looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life, waiting for the other shoe or elevator to drop. Let me explain. Last night I took a lift. Didn't notice anything out of the ordinary at first. The driver had a smoker's rasp, floral pastel shirt, lined spider webbing around her beady eyes. Thank your kooky aunt who wears too many rings and keeps a stash of vodka in the glove box. We were talking about making the most of life since you never know how long it'd be. And she chuckled and said,
"Well, actually, I know exactly how long your life will be. Your death. I can see it right in your eyes. Anyone's except my own, of course. Mere's no good. Has to be the real thing."
"You can see my death in my eyes?" I sputtered, incredulous.
"Sure."
"Oh, okay, so how do I..."
"Before you ask, I gotta warn you. Nothing you do can prevent it."
"Nothing?"
"Nothing,"
she said, smug and certain. "But how do you know?"
"'Cause I know."
Seeing the skeptical stare in the rear view, she said,
"Take the guy I picked up last year. He was flying home to Minnesota. He asked me to tell him, so I said, 'Your car's gonna skid on the ice in a terrible snowstorm, and you'll die in the crash.' Now, this guy, he's not like you. You think I'm talking nonsense. But him, he's a believer. He takes what I say dead serious, get me? So, what's he do? He gets a separate home for the winter, stays out of Minnesota, overwinters in San Antonio. They get maybe 5 inches of snow a decade. He figures he's safe."
"But he wasn't."
"Remember last year? What took out the power grid in Texas?"
I did remember when she mentioned it. The freak winter storm that caused power failures all across Texas as temperatures plummeted.
Funny thing, his car in Minnesota had good tires and handled the snow well. But in San Antonio, he wasn't prepared for it. I read his obituary. May he rest in peace. No, he won't."
Before I could ask what she meant by this ominous remark, she went on.
"Then there was the guy last week."
"What happened to the guy last week?" The woman's eyes twinkled in that way of a street grifter who's made their mark.
"I picked him up from the airport, same as you. Gave him the warning, but he was curious, same as you. So I told him, 'You die from a bite of a predator.'"
"And?" I was too curious to restrain myself.
"Turns out this guy was planning to go on a safari with his girlfriend. But after my warning, he called her up right there in the car. Told her he couldn't go." "Oh, you should have heard."
She laughed and slapped her thigh.
"Oh boy, was his girlfriend peeved. She told him canceling right after they already paid wasn't fair. I told him she was right. He'd better not cancel. Might as well just go on the safari."
"And did he?" I asked, riveted. "Did he go and get eaten by a lion?"
"Nope." She went alone.
There was a sly glimmer in her eyes.
He stayed home and looked after his girlfriend's cat. The cat bit him. He thought it'd be fine with just some peroxide and rest. Killed him in a day.
No way, I said. How could a little cat's bite kill a grown man? I didn't believe her, but she told me to look it up, so I did. And there was the story from last week in local news. I was horrified. Cat bites can turn deadly in a matter of hours if they become infected. I put my phone away. Jeez, I said. For a few minutes I was silent, contemplative. He shouldn't have agreed to watch the cat. If it were me, I would have avoided all animals. Even a rat can be a predator.
Smart you.
She tipped her head toward me.
But don't matter. It's like I told the soccer mom yesterday, the one who's gonna die of rabies. There's no way to avoid what I see.
Why not? I challenged. What if the soccer mom locks herself in a room for the rest of her life and never has any exposure to nature? I knew this wasn't a logical course of action, of course, but hypothetically, if she did that, she'd be safe.
Nope.
Nope? How nope? You're saying even in secure isolation, somehow some rabid animal would break in, bite her, and give her rabies?
Nah, you're thinking too extreme. It's a lot simpler than that. It's always the simple thing. Listen, she was in the car yesterday with me, yeah? And just like you said, she said she was going to avoid all nature, live in the city and never leave her enclosed high-rise building. But I told her it wouldn't help. Then I gave her some water. And I told her, funny thing about rabies, you can get bitten by something with tiny fangs like a bat and not even feel it. You don't even know you've been infected, and you might not even get sick until, 5, 6 weeks, even months later. Of course, the symptoms of rabies look a lot like flu at first, but as it progresses, there's delirium, agitation, and of course, the most distinguishing symptom is with water. That's why they call it hydrophobia, aversion to water. See, it spreads through saliva, so the rabies virus makes it so you can't swallow. Now, the woman, she hadn't touched her bottle. She was looking more and more agitated. She'd been kinda feverish looking since before she got in my car. And I told her, she might be thinking she's just feeling a touch of the flu, and it hurts her throat when she tries to choke anything down. But the thing about rabies is, there's no treatment once the symptoms show. Sure, there's a vaccine, but you gotta get it immediately right after exposure, 'cause during that long incubation period, it spreads all throughout your body. So that by the time you start showing symptoms, you're already dead.
I sat, silent, appalled. I looked at the water bottle I'd been offered by the driver and that I had already sipped from, and set it down. This whole business about rabies sounded horrific. You said she was in here yesterday? The driver chuckled.
You think I'd give you a used bottle? Come on now. Besides, it's not how you die.
How do I die? I said, the words out of my mouth before I could stop them. To my surprise, she didn't hem or haw anymore.
You die because the elevator cable snaps.
I die because the cable snaps. That gave me pause. The building does have an elevator. I use it every day. I live on the 10th floor, so climbing the stairs isn't feasible. I considered my options. Immediately, I found myself thinking about moving to a single-story building or some other location that my traveling in an elevator wouldn't be necessary. But that wouldn't work, would it? After all, she already told me stories of people who changed their habits precisely because she warned them, with the result that their changed habits caused their own deaths. In fact, the more I thought about it, the more it seemed there was always a catch to her warnings. Suspicious, I asked her, "Why didn't you tell the safari guy it was a cat bite? A little more clarity and he might still be alive." Her lips curled at the corners, and I swear I saw tiny horns in her mess of dark hair. And she said,
Well, son, there's rules to these things, you know? I tell the truth. It's up to you to interpret it.
"Who makes the rules?" I asked. But the car screeched to a halt. She tapped her nose.
Think this is your stop?
She said. I hadn't even given her the building address, just the general neighborhood name. But here I was. I paid her and got out, and she zipped away before I could ask any more questions. Later, I contacted Lyft, but they didn't have a driver matching her description, or any record of the ride that picked me up. Well, what would you have done? I marched my suitcase over to the elevator and pushed the button. I wasn't about to carry that damn suitcase up 10 flights of steep stairs. I reasoned that instead of trying to outmaneuver her predictions, I'd pretend not to know about my death due to snapped elevator cable. Pretending was hard, though, given the knowledge was already in my brain. I almost fainted when I crossed the threshold, dragging my suitcase into that wobbly, janky old elevator. Every creak and clank sent my heart plummeting. The 60 seconds it took to reach the 10th floor felt as if they stretched on for 60 years. And I was nearly sick on myself when the doors finally opened and I stumbled, pale and shaking, to my flat. Research helped me feel better about my situation later. See, unlike rabies, which really does leave you dead if you're showing symptoms, or a cat bite, which really can kill you, an elevator plunging you to your death is more of an urban myth. There are backup cables and brakes, so that despite what you see in the movies, it's essentially impossible for you to go plummeting. I spoke to several elevator technicians, and they all assured me that there's no way for me to die from a snapped cable, short of having a heart attack. And now that I know that, my panicking and dying by heart attack is a lot less likely. And here comes the bagel. The bagel that I mentioned in the title of this post, which nearly cost my life. See, I didn't really need to go out today, but around lunchtime I craved a bagel, so I took the elevator. I punched in the button for the lobby. I was already imagining what kind of toppings I'd order from the corner bagel shop. No sooner had the doors closed than there was this horrible clang, and the elevator dropped. I was suspended in the air, my heart stopped. My stomach, I left it hovering somewhere in the 10th floor. I cursed all my research and the elevator technicians who lied to me. Then my body slammed into the floor of the elevator car, jerked to a halt. I'd only dropped maybe a few feet. The brake saved me. And though my heart was hammering like the wings of a hummingbird, I think the fact that I knew the elevator car couldn't fall prevented me from being as petrified as I would have been otherwise. I'm proud to say that I was quite calm as I waited for emergency services to get me out. They're still repairing the elevator, and despite my anxiety, I plan to ride it again once it's fixed. Gotta keep on pretending like the cable hasn't got it out for me, right? Because, see, now I've proven it's safe. So, sorry this tale doesn't end in the grim or ghostly, but what a wild ride, eh? And I've never really got my bagel. Guess I'll get it now. Figure I deserve it after all of that. The elevator's probably not operational yet, so for now, it's the stairs. Cinnamon raisin or everything?